Okay. Yep. We're live.
We're live and kicking.
Yep.
Perfect. Hello, welcome back to episode 3 of the Winging It Podcast. Appreciate there's been some technical difficulties that's kept us off air for a week, but we're back.
I mean, you can just say I'm lazy.
Ben, I would never throw stones at you when I'm living in a glass house. I'm sure we both could have done a bit more to get together, but so much has happened actually in terms of sports over the last few weeks. I don't really know where we should start, but I think one thing that we have spoken about almost every podcast actually is rearing its ugly head again. And it's racism in football.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit of a joke now because it's like it came out in the media that after Pogba and Rashford were racially abused, that they would be Manchester United would be meeting with Twitter to see what can be done, and yet again, it's happened nearly a week after they were supposedly meeting with Twitter to try and find a solution. So it's ridiculous. It really is.
I don't really know what Twitter could do other than adopt zero fuck's sake. But you're gonna have to cut that, mate.
I'm definitely not cutting that. I have not got the time nor the energy to be cutting things.
Bro, you can't.
Listen, it's called the Wingin It Podcast for a reason, so let's carry on.
Yeah, bro.
I get what you mean about Twitter wanting to have a zero tolerance policy on racism, but they already have that in place. That's already a thing. What Harry Maguire made a very, very good point is that if you're going to have a Twitter account, then you need to verify it with an ID, a passport, a driving license. That way, if your account is found to be violating the terms of service by being racist or something along those lines, then it's completely fair to then pass that information that you've provided to onto the police, and then they can make the decisions that they need to make.
Do you know, I haven't actually thought of it like that. I think if there is that kind of accountability in terms of you verified this account, it is 100% you, it will, or it should drive better behavior. The thing is with Twitter, they've got so much money and they're quite a high tech social networking platform that I'm sure they can put together some code that automatically picks out certain words, and when it detects tweets with certain words in it, it should just not show them. It should take them down instantly. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea in theory, but the reality is yes, they could put which would essentially be called a profanity filter to take those tweets down immediately and suspend the account, but then the people would just be able to put up a picture with those words inside the picture, and Twitter can't do anything about that without actually seeing it for themselves.
Yeah, true. I guess there's always going to be a way for people to work around any policies, procedures, protocols that are in place to catch it. But it doesn't change the fact that we're living in a time where we should have moved on from this. Race, religion, sexual orientation, they're all they're all being scrutinized and being used to divide us. And I don't want to sound really spiritual, but we are all one race. And if Zuma scores an own goal, or if Ivanovic scores an own goal, or if Mason Mount scores an own goal, the fact is it's an own goal. But if an English player scores, or I say English, if a white British footballer does something wrong, they may get slated by the press, but the general public, don't tend to pick up on it too much. But the second somebody of kind of different different color or different, kind of religion, for example, does the same thing, it's just instant. It's instant. And I don't want to throw stones at Chelsea, but it's happened with Tammy Abraham. It's now happened with Kurt Zuma. It is widespread, as you said. It happened at United in quick succession as well. But even overseas, you got Lukaku was, had monkey noises being made at him yesterday or Saturday, this weekend for sure. And I mean, you watch a lot more football than me, Ben. But do you think there are any leagues out there?
I felt the shots being fired there. You've got nothing better to do. You just watch football. Yeah, pretty much. I'm not going to deny that. But yeah, no, I mean, listen. The thing is, and especially in Italy, it's very hard to say, "Oh, this is terrible." This, that, because the Italian FA and the league don't actively do anything to stop these things from happening. The only people that actually stop these things from happening and actually sanction the Italian clubs that are involved are UEFA. But UEFA cannot come in and take over the discipline for a domestic league. It's just not going to happen. And it just feels like the Italian league, it's just become a running thing now, where it's, I think this is the right way to describe it. In Italy, it's become socially acceptable, and nobody really throws too much of a tantrum over it when it does happen. Obviously, the players themselves aren't happy about it, but then we had the situation with ICP.
Yeah.
He was racially abused playing for Juventus, and I think it was one of the centre backs for Juventus at the time said, "Oh, it's not that bad," or something along those lines, which is just crazy to think. And it was an Italian defender as well. So I just think that it is in Italy. It's just a socially acceptable thing, and they won't come down on you too hard if you are racist, essentially.
I agree with that. I certainly recognise the scenario you were speaking about, where the defender come out and said, it's not really the end of the world. It's not that bad. I think it's that exact attitude that's being kind of fed from the top down in the Italian FA. That's, as you say, kind of driving it towards a kind of socially acceptable way of thinking. But then on the flip side of that, then Ben, are there any other European leagues that you think are doing a good job to kind of proactively clamp down? Is there something widespread that we could adopt?
No, the thing is, people, like, especially with the Kurt Zuma situation, the people on social media are up in arms about it. It's happened numerous times over the last few weeks now. Have you seen a statement or a publication from either the Premier League or the Football Association that are condemning this? We will find the people responsible. Anything along those lines? Because I haven't.
No, I haven't actually.
Which begs the question: is, are they actually doing anything to stop this? Obviously, yeah. I think the biggest uproar was Paul Pogba when he missed the penalty, and you had the entire United squad come out on social media in defence of their teammate and saying this is not acceptable. Twitter need to do something about this. But then no one from the respective league or the Football Association are actually actively doing anything to stop this, or to even though maybe look, it's always going to be impossible to stop it, but at least find a way to limit it.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
At the end of the day, they're football players. They get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, but they're still people, and that's what a lot of people forget. In the heat of the moment, when you're watching a football match and someone makes a mistake, and you condemn them, you use derogatory words about them, but at the end of the day, they're the same as you and me, although very, very, very richer.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And when you're talking about players making mistakes, and then in the heat of the moment you do get onto them. I was picturing myself actually. I play football as often as I can actually, and I'm guilty of it myself, saying what on earth are you doing? That was rubbish. You're better than this. You're better than that. You should have done this. You should have done that. But it's crazy how at grassroots level there isn't that kind of racial aggravated mentality. I've never heard on a football pitch that I've been playing on, someone saying, "Oh, you white this," or you black that. But the higher up the footballing pyramid that we go, where there is more scrutiny, it's a much more visible version of the game. It's rife and it's allowed to exist and breathe in a very heavily regulated and scrutinized environment. But yet, on Hackney Marshes, Leighton Jubilee Park, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like there's a lot more mutual respect at the grassroots level of the game, but the higher up the footballing pyramid you go, the bigger that gap of respect becomes. So it's definitely a difficult one, but it's something that it does seem like it's just becoming more and more socially acceptable. So it's difficult.
It's mad because the British public are fickle people. Now, I'm not saying for one second that it's only British fans that are being racist. As you said, you can open a Twitter account in 2 minutes with very little personal information needed. It certainly doesn't need to be validated. So you could tweet from anywhere in the world and it's visible. But the British people, they're incredibly fickle because I want to move on to cricket, for example. Cricket, there was a massive game last week, England versus Australia in the Ashes. It was the third test, Australia winning 1-0, and we're on the brink of winning that test match as well until Sir, and he is going to be a Sir, but I'll refer to him as Sir Ben Stokes, came to the crease and performed a miracle. And the reason why I suppose it feeds in nicely is because Ben Stokes is now an English cricketing legend. He blows up on Twitter. He's getting all sorts of marketing opportunities, advertisements, endorsements. But he's from New Zealand, so he was born in New Zealand. But because he's doing good for English sport, his heritage, his race, it doesn't matter anymore. And I think it's just such a fickle world that we live in. I know you don't really watch cricket, nor do you like cricket, but I'm sure as somebody that follows sport, you would have heard about the Ben Stokes situation and the performance that he put in. How do you think his performance is gonna feed into cricket as a whole?
I mean, for me, the most I know about cricket is what I see on social media, so I'll probably be the wrong person to ask about that. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to just let you take the lead on this one because all I know is that there's a wicket and there's two little wooden things, a bat and a ball.
A bat and a ball.
Much as I know.
But that's,
yeah.
I mean, to be honest, you don't really need to know much more than that, I guess. But Ben Stokes, he single-handedly helped us win the Cricket World Cup. So I mean, this year he's had 2 once-in-a-lifetime performances, and I reckon it's probably going to make him a shoo-in for Sports Personality of the Year. I can't think of anybody in sport anywhere in the world at the moment that's had such a big impact on the outcome of a sporting event as Ben Stokes. He probably could have won it for his.
I mean, West Ham won the World Cup in 1966. So,
West Ham, the only domestic team to win the World Cup, right?
Of course. I had to throw that in there.
You can throw it in there. I know it's been a barren time for West Ham fans. So you can.
And it's going to continue to be a barren time.
Yeah.
Shocking. Anyway, we should switch over and move on to the games from this weekend. I think there's only one place to start, and Stamford Bridge.
Stamford Bridge, Chelsea,
Which,
my
yeah,
nemesis. They're my nemesis. Whenever they're in my bet, they perform badly.
well, to be fair, Manchester United normally put you in a
Oh,
bad position as well.
you
But
you you know, Man United put me in a bad position because he was laughing at me whilst it was happening.
oh, well, I need to get my entertainment from somewhere. But no, so the Chelsea go 2-0 up with two well taken strikes from Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, they were.
Um, and then within a minute of the second half kicking off, Sheffield United had gotten a goal back, brought it back to 2-1, and from there on it was just all Sheffield United. I don't think in the second half Chelsea didn't create anything of note, and in the last few minutes of the game, I believe that Sheffield United got the equaliser, which was well deserved.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing football during the first half and some of the second half. We were actually listening to it on the way to the pub after the game, Ben, and it was a surprise, I guess, in as much as you would say Chelsea on paper are gonna absolutely obliterate Sheffield United, but from what I heard and subsequently what I've seen the highlights of, it was a 2-2 game. A draw was a fair result if it wasn't generous towards Chelsea, which is crazy to think that Chelsea at home aren't smashing teams like that.
I think it's at a point now for a team like Chelsea, and it's a situation of how the mighty have fallen, and it just shows you that if you haven't got the money to buy players for a club like Chelsea, they do start going downhill very very fast, and it just shows you how difficult it is to compete in the Premier League, especially if you look at the teams that are coming up from the Championship. Yes, you've got the Aston Villas and the Fulhams that are spending ridiculous amounts of money on players, but then if you look at a club like Sheffield United or a club like Norwich City, they don't spend a lot of money on players. Just how hard it is, and just what an achievement it is if they are to stay in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you touched on it. It's the old, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. It's not even about standing still. Chelsea are hamstrung, I guess, to an extent whereby they can't buy anybody new, but on paper their squad is still good enough to finish towards the top end of the Premier League. But what I'm finding is the clubs that are coming up and aren't investing heavily in their squads, they've still got that mentality of never give up. Whilst the game's still going, there's a chance. And it was an own goal that brought Sheffield United back into the game and got them a point at Stamford Bridge. But it's they work hard. It's a mentality. The higher up the Premier League you go, with the exception of at the moment Liverpool and City, there's an entitlement to, we are going to do well because we're Arsenal, we're Man U, we're Tottenham. And the reality is, if you do not work hard in this league, you will lose, and you will lose to every single team.
I think that's one of the main reasons why Chelsea fans are so riled up at the moment, is because they've had success for so long. They now believe that there is a sense of entitlement around their club, and that they should be competing for the Premier League every season, or they should be at the very least in the Champions League every season. And obviously, that's last season that didn't happen. They competed in the Europa League, and luckily they managed to bring a couple of players in and go and win the Europa League and achieve a place in the top four
Yeah.
of the Premier League to get back into the Champions League this season. But I feel that looking at the squad that they have at the moment, this is without doubt the weakest squad that I've seen Chelsea have in the Roman Abramovich era, and I would imagine he's not too pleased about it. But at this moment in time, there isn't actually a lot that he can do about it, or anyone at Chelsea can do about it, because they've brought in a manager who's inexperienced in Lampard, who I rate quite highly as a coach. But I think one of the reasons they brought it in brought him in was one to win over the fan base, because if they had brought in any other manager, I don't think the fans would have taken to him after the big outcry when Maurizio Sarri was there as manager.
Yeah.
But also because Lampard he's well known, and it's well documented that he likes to work with youth players, and he wants to bring players through and give them a pathway to the first team. Now, I don't know if Chelsea's the right club for him to be doing that. I believe that somewhere like West Ham or Southampton, who are, it's well documented that over the years they have brought through a number of youth team players to the first team. And I just feel that Chelsea are they always have been a buying and selling club, and to try and change that persona now because they have a transfer ban, I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
But
and as you said, it's almost impossible to do. He had to bring in Lampard because nobody else any other manager that wasn't connected to Chelsea wouldn't get the time that Chelsea need. They can't sign anyone, and I think Frank Lampard buys some time for sure. I think he'll get a lot more leeway than anybody else that he could have brought in. So, in one sense, it was kind of forced upon him. But I think, as you say, looking at their squad, it's not the best it's been. There is going to be quite a reliance on youth, and when you factor in the fact that they are going to be, playing in the Champions League, their group isn't too difficult. That being said, it's not too easy. They've got Ajax, Valencia, and Lille. You factor those games into the season. I think they may come up short by some distance, which is sad, I guess, because they're a London club. I'm a London boy, but I fear for them. I would be surprised if they finished top 6 this season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just moving on from Chelsea there. A couple of other results from this weekend, and one of them was we touched on, which was Southampton 1, Manchester United 1, and Southampton finished the game with 10 men. And I believe, as a football fan in general, I believe that serious questions need to be asked of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now, because this is I think he's achieved 13 points in his last 13 games as Manchester United manager. And I believe the last away game that they won was against PSG in the Champions League at the start of the year, which is just incredible for a club like Manchester United to not have won away from home for that length of time.
I mean, what a game to win, though. What a game to win. But no, I agree with you. And this is, I suppose, not wanting to kind of backtrack towards Chelsea, but United are in a very similar position. Their squad's not amazing. It's so much better than what they're showing. And do I think it's solely down to Solskjaer? Yes and no. I was having a conversation with my brother yesterday, and he hasn't recruited very well, and they haven't sold very well. So the incomings and outgoings at United haven't been as good as they should have been. But then, is that down to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or is that down to the hierarchy? Because when Ferguson left, the kind of backroom dynamics changed a little bit, and they haven't really had a successful manager since. And is that down to the individuals that they've brought in, or is it something a little bit more deep rooted than that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe from a football fan's point of view, if you look at the structure of a club now, managers do not exist. Managers aren't a thing anymore.
Sure.
Because when you think about managers, you think of an Arsene Wenger and Alex Ferguson, who were in charge of the club from top to bottom. Now, they're in charge of transfers. They're in charge of who they went and bought, how much they spent on that player. Now, if you look at it, all the head coaches can do is pass on a list of transfer targets, players that they want to get rid of, and then the club then make the decision on what to do. Because obviously, if if let's say last summer you go out and spend 80 million pounds on a player, you sack your manager halfway through the season, and now this new manager does not want that player, you're stuck in a precarious situation,
Sure.
because you know you're going to make a heavy loss on this player, but you also need to kind of not bow down to the wishes of a new manager, but you have to you have to find a middle ground,
Yeah.
because there are going to be a group of players that won't fit into the manager's plans. Now, and that group of players could collectively be costing you over £1 million a week in wages. And from a club point of view and from the players' point of view, is can you afford that loss? Two, it's going to be very, very detrimental to the player's career.
Yeah.
Being out of the game for a year, 2 years, whatever it may be. And three is the manager going to stay at the club if the club don't listen to what he wants and what he needs in order to improve? So that's the be all and end all of it, because someone like Solskjaer, I believe that he did give United a list of targets, and I think out of that list of targets, only one player was purchased, which was Harry Maguire, who United have been heavily linked with for the past 2 to 3 years anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a real shock that Maguire ended up at Manchester United. But I mean, it's definitely it's a difficult situation to be in. I don't believe that Manchester United will be winning trophies anytime soon.
No.
Simply because their squad isn't balanced. They've let their top strikers go.
Yeah.
Maybe the ones that didn't perform on the pitch, but Alexis Sanchez has gone to Inter Milan on loan. Romelu Lukaku's gone to Inter Milan on a permanent deal, and they haven't brought anyone in to replace them.
No. United's strike force is Rashford, Martial, and Mason Greenwood. So, where are they going to get the goals from? Yeah, they got Wan-Bissaka. Yeah, they got Maguire. De Gea hasn't been amazing, but they've got solid defenders.
Just thinking about it now, I saw the news report today that Martial was going to be out for up to a month. So, literally, what every United fan was fearing at the start of the season is what happens if one of these players gets injured. How do we cope? Well, you've got that situation right now, where
you don't cope.
Rashford is not. He's not an Ibrahimovic. He's not a personality. He's not that guy that will pick your team up when you're 2-0 down and go and score a hat-trick and win you the game. If he does it, it's a massive fluke. He's not. He's too inexperienced.
Yeah, and he's inconsistent. And maybe he'll get better. There's a lot of time left in his career for him to improve, to become more consistent. But I look at United's team and I can't see where they're going to get the goals. They played 4 games and won once, and that was the first game of the season. And they won convincingly, don't get me wrong, but they weren't 4-0 better than Chelsea that game. The result says, yeah, we won 4-0, but they're just not going to score enough. They're not going to score enough, and they will struggle to finish in the top 6 this season as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done Chelsea, we've done Manchester United. North London derby.
2-2 is Desmond. It was a game of two halves, really. And
absolutely.
I know it's such a cliche to say, but the first half, I want to say Tottenham controlled it. I wouldn't say that they ran the game, but they played the game that they wanted to play. They kept it tight at the back. They sprung counter attacks, and they were comfortable. They were comfortable. If they went into halftime 2-0 up, I think they would have seen the game out. Laka's goal in added time in the first half kind of swung the momentum, and the second half I'd prefer not to talk about. I wish the game finished at 45 minutes, but it doesn't. But it was a fair result, and if anything, from my perspective, Tottenham should feel happy that they came away with a point. Even though they were 2-0 up, it might feel like a loss, but there's games where you draw and you feel positively about it, and there's games you draw and you feel really kind of negative. But I think
I believe that the first half, Tottenham were in the game because of mistakes that Arsenal made.
Sure.
Team selection was wrong, 100%. I can say that loud and clear. Xhaka should not have started over Ceballos.
Xhaka shouldn't start over anyone, to be honest.
I'm sorry, but if you're going to start Xhaka over Ceballos or even Willock, you need your head tested, because that guy does not bring anything to Arsenal at all. I've watched him play for Switzerland, and he looks like a different player, because he picks up the ball, he drives past players, he tries to get shots off. At Arsenal, he just wants to pick up the ball and pass it sideways. It's ridiculous. And he's done this under 2 managers now. He's done it under Arsene Wenger, and has been the same thing under Unai Emery. And somebody at the club just needs to turn around and say, "Look, go."
I think Gary Neville said it best. He's the most experienced player to never get experienced. he still falls for traps. I mean, his challenge on Son was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why you go to ground in your own box unless you're trying to block a shot. But he's just woeful. Do you know what I do want to talk about? I think he had a really good game, and the football group chat was talking about him before the game, and there was Guendouzi. I think he had an amazing game. It was the best game I've seen him have. Sideshow Bob, David Luiz, and Guendouzi.
Sideshow Bob and his son. That's a Head and Shoulders commercial right there.
He was very good. He was very good, and I like the look of a few Arsenal players. So, as you said, Ceballos, when he came on, was very good. It's the first time, I must admit, I've seen Pepe play, and I think, apart from the fact he didn't get a goal or an assist, I can see that he's going to be a very influential player for Arsenal. Very good, comfortable on the ball.
I think defenders in the top 6 need to be very, very worried, because what he did to Van Dijk last week, when Arsenal, or the other week when Arsenal played Liverpool, he was the first person to dribble past him since he joined Liverpool. So the defenders should be worried, because this guy hasn't even got out of first gear yet. He's still getting to know the country, understanding how to play within the Unai Emery system. So I believe that once he gets that sorted, and he's fully fit and he's ready to start firing, I think you'll see a massive difference.
Yeah, I think he's certainly exciting, and I must admit, I'm not a massive fan of Arsenal, but I appreciate good football, and I think he's gonna keep people on the edge of their seat. So they could have a good one.
Well, I mean, if you appreciate good football, you might as well become an Arsenal fan, because that's what they play. But I mean, 2-2's probably a fair result. One thing I do need to talk about in this game was, I'm sorry, but where the hell was VAR? I don't think I saw VAR used once.
I didn't notice it. I mean, that being said, when
Xhaka's challenge on Son, I believe, should have been a penalty.
Yeah, defo.
And the Harry Kane penalty, I believe, should have been given as a yellow card for simulation.
Yeah,
I don't believe it was a penalty.
It wasn't. Harry Kane threw himself in. Harry Kane initiated the contact. I'm not saying there wasn't any contact, but he initiated it. He knew it was coming, and he tried to play the referee, I guess.
And the thing that's really, really frustrating from an England point of view is this is our captain, and this isn't the first time this season he's been caught out for diving.
No, he's getting a bit of a reputation for it.
It's so frustrating, because if Harry Kane dives and the ref doesn't give a penalty, then he has to book him for simulation. Or if the referee doesn't see it, then the panel need to look at it and then ban him for simulation. It's as simple as that. But we both know that that's not going to happen, because he's England's captain, because he's England's golden boy. Nobody will look at anything. He and then look at the difference between Harry Kane diving and Raheem Sterling apparently diving.
For sure.
Raheem Sterling does it, he gets ridiculed. It's disgraceful. He shouldn't even play for England anymore. Harry Kane does it. Oh, it's okay. He's our captain.
Yeah,
he's our goal scorer.
Should have been a penalty. Why didn't they give him a penalty?
It's
You know,
ridiculous.
I love Harry Kane's goals. I love the goals he scores. I love how hard he works, and he's a good footballer. Let's not forget that he's, you know, a lethal finisher. He's a good footballer, but as a role model, you know, I don't think he's as golden as we like to think he is, for sure. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, really. You know, Sterling diving, Harry Kane diving. It's the same thing. It's the same action. It's the same event, but it's a completely different reaction. And you know, that's part of the problem. Who else played? We had Liverpool Burnley. That was
Liverpool Burnley. I think that one was 3-0.
it was 3-0 to Liverpool. Yeah.
Who else played?
West Ham.
West Ham
West Ham beat
against.
Norwich.
Yeah, I was scrolling through Sky Sports today, and there was some news coming out because obviously it's transfer deadline day when we're recording this,
Yeah.
and Javier Hernandez has joined Sevilla on a permanent deal.
Has he gone to Sevilla? Has he?
Yeah, and that now leaves West Ham very very short on the ground because the only two strikers they have now are Sebastian Haller and Ajeti, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I think he's a Swiss international who joined from FC Basel in the summer. But for a season as long as West Ham's is going to be, when you factor in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and the league, I think that they've left themselves extremely light on the ground with only two strikers.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing I will say is that they tend to only play with one. That being said, obviously having two strikers is not enough. I look at the people that they let go. Carroll, for example, absolutely the right decision.
I mean, to be fair, in a fight, over the course of 5 years, he's spent more time injured than he has playing. And the highlight of his West Ham career was a bicycle kick against Crystal Palace, who,
that was
let's be
an
completely
amazing
honest, is
bicycle
Crystal
kick.
Palace.
Yeah,
It's nothing special.
I agree with you though. They are a bit thin on the ground, but then they've got people like Antonio that could, you know, potentially do a job up there.
Antonio, I think he ruptured his hamstring against Newport in the FA in the Carabao Cup last week.
Is he out? Is he?
I think he's going to be out for a long time. They're talking about him needing surgery on it, so you're looking at the early part of 2020 before he's even back in training, I'd imagine.
I think it's good that Yarmolenko's back. He's going to be like a new signing again, and he's on the score sheet as well, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope he comes back as a new signing because he barely made any appearances before
Yeah,
last season.
No, it's mad, isn't it?
But yeah, no, he took his goal well. But hopefully there's a lot more to come from him.
Yeah.
I would firmly believe that I think West Ham's front four is pretty set now with Felipe Anderson on the left, Lanzini in the 10 with Yarmolenko on the right and Sebastian Haller up top.
Yeah.
It's a decent strike force, but you got to remember Pellegrini's it's still a big rebuilding job that he's doing.
Yeah, and I like that Haller is scoring because it's always difficult when you bring someone in from abroad. Are they going to adapt? There's countless examples of people that have come into the Premier League with high expectations and not performed very well. Now, obviously we're getting carried away with ourselves. We're four games into the season, but it's good to see him finding the back of the net.
Yeah, I think that's most of the Premier League covered, apart from the Aston Villa Crystal Palace game.
Yeah,
which I was absolutely fuming with because yet again we're looking at VAR, we're looking at referees, and we're looking at diving. So I think it was the last minute of the game. Grealish had the ball in the edge of the area. He felt a nudge in the back and went down. And it's not like he deliberately went. It didn't look like a dive to me. But that's how the referees interpreted it. But as he's gone down, he's played the ball to Lansbury, who was onside, and they've scored to level the game up at 1-1. But the referee has pulled the play back, awarded a free kick to Crystal Palace, and then booked Jack Grealish to simulation.
Yeah, nice order.
So it's cost Aston Villa a point. Their manager was fuming, and he was well within his rights to be, because even Jack Grealish turned around and said, "Well, I didn't dive. I felt contact and I went down, but I still played the ball. I wasn't looking for a foul." it was still we were still playing the game. We weren't all shouting and screaming asking for a foul to be awarded. But that's cost Aston Villa a point against a team which really they should be at least getting a point out of, and if not beating them.
Yeah, and they done it with 10 men as well. They had a player sent off 9 minutes after the second half began. Second yellow card, reckless tackle on, I think it was Zaha. But to get into a position where you're still in the game and indeed you do put a goal into the back of the net with 10 men, to have that kind of taken away from you is difficult. It's a difficult pill to swallow. Made even worse by the fact that the goal scorer used to play for you. I think it was Jordan Ayew, wasn't it? So that's just a series of bitter pills that you're forced to swallow in one game, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult one for Aston Villa, but I would still tip them to have a good season.
Did Grealish get a yellow card for going down? He did, didn't he?
I believe he did. Let me have a look. But yeah, I mean, just when I'm having a look at that, just moving on from the Premier League, I think there's one massive talking point that we haven't touched on yet, which is Bury Football Club.
Very, 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 very. I am disgusted with the EFL for the way that they've handled this whole situation. Forget about the financial woes that they're having, that they had, and the reason behind them being expelled from the Football League. How on earth was their owner able to pass the fit and proper persons test? And what constitutes the fit and proper persons test? Because to all intents and purposes, Bury's chairman isn't fit or proper to own any business, let alone a football club with such history.
Let's be completely honest, it's absolutely disgusting. I think the EFL have failed them. I think the FA have failed them as well. And I believe both companies, or both institutions, should hang their heads in shame that they have allowed a club with over 100 years of history to essentially be wiped out. Bury have already been informed that if they were to re-enter the Football League next season, they would have to enter the league at step 6, which is just above what you play, Ben. So
step 6, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But I think the local MP for Bury and the fans are they've sent a letter to all 71 member clubs of the Football League, and asked for essentially a reprieve, and that Bury enter the league at League 2 next season. So just expel them from the league for this season, allow them to join League 2 next season, and they've got a new owner that's willing to come in and spend £7 million to clear the debt on the club and get them competing again. But the problem they've got again is this owner is a Brazilian guy. He's I think he owns a mining company. So if that industry starts declining, Bury could find themselves in a similar position, if not slightly more precarious, because once the money runs out, who's going to foot the bill?
Yeah, and football clubs are private enterprises, but they're run like public organisations, and I just don't see how it was allowed to get so bad. At what point is it kind of irresponsible of the EFL to let it get to where it got to? There shouldn't have been an 8-hour deadline. It shouldn't have been you've got a week to get us this or a month to get us that. It shouldn't have been allowed to get to that point, and it has done. And as you say, they've been failed by by just about everyone really, and we've lost a community club that, if it was down to me and I knew that we had to reform and join at step 6, I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I mean it's absolutely crazy. But for Bury fans, I suppose the one good thing that they can take from this is that Gig Lane will still be there when they do eventually get back to the Football League. I think it's been declared as a sports and recreation facility, or it's being protected because of how old the ground is. Bury have been there for 134 years, I think it is.
Yeah. And I mean, just to clear up promotions and relegations, to my understanding, it's going to stay exactly the same, except in League One, which is obviously the league that they've been expelled from. Instead of 4 clubs going down, there's only going to be 3 that go down. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I mean, let me have a look. Oh yeah, just going back to it. Yeah, Grealish was booked in the 96th minute.
Yes, another bitter pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah, I mean, after the last few years, after the few years that Aston Villa have had as a club, yeah, it's definitely a difficult situation for them. Okay, so right now, League One is showing that there are 23 teams.
Yeah.
So Bury have been removed from there. So let's just have a look at League Two.
League Two should still be 24, and I think there'll still be 3 clubs that go up. Or no, maybe 4 clubs go up. 4 clubs will probably go up.
Yeah, so first, second, and third will get promoted.
Yeah, and then
4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is playoff.
Yeah.
And then only 2 clubs will go down.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, no, I mean, at the moment, those teams are Exeter, who are occupying promotion. We'll see what happens coming into the season. Personally, I'd like to wait for Colchester up there.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This episode.
Yeah. No, I think obviously let's try and get back to scheduled programming from next week. But thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to speaking with you again.
Okay.